Okay.
Three, two, one.
Hey, welcome back to Knuckleball Primetime here on YouTube Live, Facebook Live. We're also going to bring this to you as part of our pregame show for North County Homecoming versus the Windsor Owls. My name is Jason Loughary. This is my elementary gym teacher from kindergarten all the way through sixth grade, Mr. Ron Storie. Good to see you. How are you,
Good
sir?
to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh man, I listened to the podcast that you did with Chad. I guess back whenever it was announced that you were going in to the North County Hall of Fame, and I just enjoyed hearing the stories and to know that you're doing okay.
Fine.
Yeah. So you started off in the. Let's go all the way back to high school because you told me something right before we started that I thought was really
Well,
interesting.
I graduated in '67, and I played on the first Central Rebel football team, 1966 year, like that, when we consolidated.
Yeah. So were you a bear or a wolf
Well,
or?
before that, I was a Flat River Bear.
Okay.
Played basketball and some football when it was Flat River, and then when
Uh-huh.
we consolidated, I just played football that final year of my senior year there.
Huh.
And it was the first full time Central Rebel, so getting used to other kids from Elvins and Esther that consolidated, and some of them were playing on the football team and got to be good friends with them and everything like that through the years. So
Was there a strong rivalry with you guys
uh,
in the beginning?
the one was Farmington and Flat River,
Yeah.
and that was carried Central, and then I think it started carrying in with North County. I think North County got consolidated the following year or
Right.
something, and then I think the first time they ever met, we assumed Central was going to win, and North County pulled it upset
Huh.
on. That was something else. But Farmington was our thing. I think one time we is like playing Alabama or something. You don't
Yeah.
win like it was like Vanderbilt. We hadn't beat them in 10 years, and in my freshman year we beat them 6-0. I remember on a pass way down the end zone, and a fresh or a kid that was a 10th grader hardly ever played was in there and caught it and fell in the end zone. We beat them, and that was something in
Wow.
2 years. And then we were predicted to lose in '66 by like 3 touchdowns, and they had Willis Gunder. I don't know if you
Oh yeah, I
and
know
he
Willis
was
very
something
well.
else.
Yeah.
And we had a young kid in the 10th grade broke loose at near halftime, ran it all the way in, tied it up. And then the third and fourth quarters, we was able to somehow score like 3 touchdowns, beat them 27-7. Always remember that score. And then afterwards, we got on the bus and took the tour down around the square down courthouse.
Oh
Just, yeah,
man.
just to let Farmington know we beat them that time. So because that to me it was like if we won that, that was our Super Bowl.
Right.
And I think we wound up 4-6, and we lost 2 games by 1 point. So,
Huh.
and there was tough teams back there. Northwest and Fox had some and St. Genevieve had really tough teams,
Right.
and everything. So, but we enjoyed it and had fun.
Who was your coach?
It was Coach Dickerson. He was
Mm-hmm.
there. I think at one time he played for the University of Mississippi. On there.
And that's where the Rebels came from, right?
That's what we had a choice. I think that year voting the student body, and it was like Buffaloes or Chargers or the Rebels, and he
Huh.
kind of pushed it,
All
where
right.
I think and it went Rebels, so that's what we were called.
He probably had a few shirts in his closet he wanted to keep
Yeah,
wearing. Huh.
like that. So that's what we became, the Rebels, or that's how the Rebels were born.
Huh. And so the other two options were the Buffaloes and the
Buffalo
Chargers?
Chargers, yeah.
Huh.
And I think Chargers came in second, like that. A lot of them kind of wanted that or something. Like it pertained to the football team, back in
Yeah.
San Diego.
Dan Fouts and the aerial attack.
Yeah, right.
Wow. So where'd you go to college? How
I
did
went
that go?
to Mac College for 2 years,
Mhm.
and then I transferred down to Southeast Missouri there, graduated in 71, like that, and then went teaching at North County at 1972. The first year I couldn't hardly find a really job. It was, everybody'd apply for it, and it'd be about like 20 people or something all over the state and everything. And I kind of had this job the first year, but the thing was everybody they only started having PE or elementary PE for about 3 years, but everyone that taught after the first year was going into football, and that was what I was going to be, is planning on being a coach and that, and they were thought about offering me a assistant coach up here at the high school and plus teaching. And this one principal over at Bonne Terre, Mr. Kirk, he wanted me, but the others they didn't, and they decided, I thought I had the job, and then they called me up a couple hours later and they said, well, we think we're going to go with this lady from St. Louis, but she graduated from down there to that program. They wanted somebody to start the program, and I said, okay. Well, then I got a call like in January or something from Mr. Kurt. He said, Ron, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm selling insurance and this and that. And I said, I just got married. He said, you ain't subbing or anything? And he said, well, I couldn't find you or something. And he said, I've hired a couple subs to finish out the rest of the year. He said, that girl, she's from St. Louis, and says she just don't like country life, and wiggled out of her contract.
Huh?
And he said, I want you over here real quick. And he said, I'm only going to interview. And I said, okay. And he said, but it's only going to be one question. And he said, I hope you get it right this year. And I walked in his door, and he says, what is it going to be? Do you want to be a coach, or do you want to start teaching and trying to start a program for the elementary? He said, you can't do both now. And I said, I wanted to teach. He said, you're hired, sign this. He got the contract. And then later on, he said, you'll probably be offered later on, Ron, you'll have kids. He said, I did too. And he said, coaching, he says, it's a all-around time almost. You get
Sure.
home late and this and that. And he said, you might not even want it. And I'll be darned, I was offered like in junior high and that, like girls basketball and
Right.
stuff about 5 or 6 years later. And I just kind of turned it down. And they said, well, why you use... I said, well, I started in this elementary and I like the kids. And I said, I kind of started my own little elementary program, intramurals and stuff like that. And I said, I'm satisfied, I liked it. And the kids seemed like they enjoyed it. So I just stuck around for that. So.
And you had a long career teaching PE at what we called back in the day Central Elementary, which was extremely confusing because the Central School District was right there. And I think their building was Central Elementary too.
Sometimes we get packages from them, and vice versa. Sometimes I get some kind of equipment balls and hope this ain't mine. And I thought it's over there at Flat River.
Yeah. And then you also did a lot of work at Cantwell Elementary too.
Yes,
and so you'd kind of go back and forth from buildings and things like that. And you had a stint where you also did some work in Bonne Terre too, right?
Yeah, Bonne Terre, I think from 72 to up to about 1983, did mostly 5th and 6th grade. Sometimes I'd come in and pick up a 3rd or 4th grade class. If Mr. Blunt Bonne Terre had a lot of classrooms. They might have 5 or 6 classrooms, while Deloge only had like 3 classrooms of a certain grade, and then the other side had 5 or 6 on the double, until finally then when they started building the new schools and that, and I think moved to K through 2 over here at Bonne Terre, I believe, and 4th grade's got their own little center like that, and
right.
That, so.
Behind us we have the old iconic building. Who were some of the teachers that you remember working with for a long time in that building?
Well, when I first started, I remember like Miss Miller and Mrs. Doss and Mrs. Kirkland and then others later on, Mrs. Mackin, and then Mr. Banco in the 6th grade, and Mrs. Warren, I believe, and Mrs. Crabtree. There's a lot of them. Brings back a lot of memories, that and Cantwell, does.
Right, yeah.
Of course, I know Cantwell's still part of it still. Everything's changed,
right.
Into it, but the old cafeteria gym, is still, I think you just use it for, I don't know what now, if it's a cafeteria or not, like that. But,
And that's a building that I have a lot of memories of you in, especially because of some of the extra things that you would do. First off would be the basketball intramurals. And like I told you before we started, I remember you walking around officiating and keeping score on a little handheld notebook and doing all that after school. And I don't think you got a dime for it, did you?
No, not there for a long time, till about, I guess, in the early 2000. And they were wanting, his federal government was wanting like more programs for after school and stuff like that. So they offered, which is offer money or something. And I thought, well, I've already done it, so I'll just sign up, but I didn't really, even if they didn't, I would have done it for nothing all the way up till I retired, because I remember Coach Sechrist that was a coach out to college, and his son and everything, and I was about his age, and he, in the summertime, he'd open up the gym down there, and, us kids back then, we walked across town, and there was no really school buses for Flat River back in until they consolidated, because we all was city kids, about, and we'd cross. I remember crossing with my glove and old ball bat, and go up there, and we'd play with some of the other kids. Some of them might be a couple years older, and we'd get in there, and he'd tell us to get in there, and I think I remember this one kid, he'd strike me out all the time. And somehow I swung one time and got a double off of him, knocked a run in. And the coach just went crazy, and I did too. But he made us feel good and come down there. And then we'd play basketball. And I think one year I'd moved over to Farmington but it was right when basketball started. And so I didn't try a team. And then I moved back, and I didn't make that year, and I was down, and I thought, I ain't going to ever go out again, and I was down there in the summer, and they'd be playing against some of them other boys, and Coach kept watching me. He said, Ron, you ought. I said, oh, Coach, I ain't make it. He said, well, keep on, and next year I made it, and then I'll be darned, I was starting on like the junior varsity and stuff. Right. So if it hadn't been for him, I probably wouldn't have ever got back into sports, and I always thanked him for that, and he was really, I think when he retired, he said, I've had a lot of awards or something. I think he's kidding me. He said, but Ron, he said, that's one of the best remarks you ever made. He said, I hope I made a good influence. And I said, well, I did. And I said, I went into teaching, but I said, I'm not really coaching, but I said, I'm doing intramurals and stuff, something like what you did, in the summertime. And he said, well, that's good to know. He said, some of those kids need that, and everything, So that's what I tried to do, because I thought there's some kids that might not ever get to know the enjoyment of being on a team, or making friendships, or making maybe good memories of it, like that. So that's what we did.
Yeah. Oh, it was a blast. The games. Obviously, California kickball is the one I think everybody remembers the most fondly. And you kind of saw something in a magazine and kind of made it your own, right?
Yeah, I kind of looked at it. I think they used like 6 bases, but I just went back to the normal, like baseball base, but in this game, you could have as many kids on the base as you want. If you wasn't forced to, no force out, you didn't have to run to second or third or whatever when it was hit. And you could pass up runners that didn't want to try. But when you did, they could throw. It's kind of like a dodgeball. They could throw the ball at you or tag, and then plus sometimes you'd get somebody hit a homer and they'd get 3 points instead of 1. And then we had like the super homer, a long one, and it was worth 10 runs. And then I'd probably buy a soda. And then inside, if you hit it in the basket for 10 runs and a soda, and if you hit it off the backboard, I think I gave you an extra point, and if they didn't catch it, 4 points, and then any other homer was 3 points, So scores would get kind of wild, and then some teams would get down, like in regular ball or something, they'd be down like 10 runs. Well, in this game, I thought some of the little kids, or someone could lay a little bunt down, they had to lay at least 3 feet, and the pitcher couldn't run up until the ball was touched, and he could only go up about 3 feet in front line and wait. But some of them would do that and get on, and they'd load up about 7 or 8, and then somebody hit a hot shot single or something through, and they all take off, and they'd throw and maybe miss them, and then that ball's rolling away, and then all of them come in scoring, boom, boom, boom. They got that many runs, and the kids were back in the game. So, like that, you couldn't take nothing like a 10 or 12 run lead. You could wind up losing anyway. The other team could come back on you, with just little hits like that. So they had a lot of fun in doing that, I believe.
And you made everything exciting, and that was part of it.
Yeah, I tried, and I tried to be their cheerleader.
Yeah.
I remember one of the teachers, of course, I said, well, sometimes the grass over at Central was too wet and you couldn't play out in the field, so we had to play kind of on the playground. But in the fall, or even like August, September, it was still hot and they didn't have air conditioning, and the teachers had to, one of the teachers said, Miss Story says, she said, I wish that grass was dry. She said, it's all right, but she says, my kids are supposed to end. But she said, I can see them leaning and they're trying to think what the score was. And then if they'd hear me here, she said, all I know is when I'd hear home run, I said, well, I'll keep quiet. She said, no, that's good for the kids. They like it.
Yeah.
And then later on, they would even, and she'd come with me and bring English teachers. Some said, well, we did some. I couldn't ever get them to do something, write stories in English or something. And so she said, I had them start writing about you or something, about a ball game or that. And she said, got them started on that. So it was all fun all the way around.
How many sodas do you think you bought over the years?
Gosh, quite a few, And then I gave some to some kids that had never, I think one little girl always, got a little hitch or something, but she hit one and it got past the fielder, and I said, run, like that. She didn't want to run. She was going to stay at first, and made it all the way around. And, kids would say, I can't believe that. And I said, well, I think I'll buy her a soda, for something like that, or see something wild that I'll never see. Probably, I mean, some of them I thought, man, that could have been if that was in major leagues, it would have been on TV.
Yeah.
I remember this one kid, a right boy, was playing soccer one time, and it was like only 2 seconds, and he ran, and I mean, he was running and it was toward midfield, but he kicked that ball, but it hooked right over over down on the ground and bounced and got past the goal and went in just as blew the whistle to win the game. And that was pretty cool. And some of the catches, some of the kids, even in the kickball,
Sure.
take a tumble, hang on. Or I remember a girl catching one the last out in the tournament, and the team was losing by 2, but they had bases loaded, 2 out, and this boy, I mean, as soon as he hit it, I thought, that's over. The game's over because all 3 runs were in.
Yeah.
And that girl just come out of nowhere staggering, I guess, and caught it, but it hit her so hard, knocked her down, and she rolled, but she still held on that ball. And, that won the game, and oh my gosh, she was a hero for that day, The kids practically carried her off on the field on their shoulders, so that's good times to see things like that. And I remember a poor little boy that was kind of crippled in his hand, and we had that rule where you had to play half the basketball game, and you'd only had 1 quarter in. And I caught it, and I said, you got to put him in. And well, the other team, and we was playing a little tournament. We got to go over Bonne Terre, and I took my best 2 teams, and Mr. Bunn had his best 2 teams, and we had a little tournament, And my team was number 1. We was playing the number 2, and then if we won, we'd go in the advance in the championship. And the boy started to shoot, started to pass it in, and it was like 5 seconds. And I kind of let the kids coach their own selves, I didn't, or even not the parents, because I thought, well, I got something, they wanted to act like a ZMBA or whatever,
Right,
real serious. And I thought, well, it's fun. But they decided to let him throw it in, but he started to throw it, and somehow, and it fell out. But anyway, the other team stole the ball and down the court and laid it in. They won by 1 point, and their best player, was madder than heck at his team, And he said, I ain't showing up for tomorrow. He said, you're just going to lose and take 4th place. Well, I'll be the number 1 Bonne Terre team got beat by Hart in the next game. So it was really the 2 number 1s were playing for 3rd and 4th, and the 2 number 2s were playing for the championship, And that little boy was in there, and they was playing a team, and it was tied again, or got down there, and it bounced to him, and he was holding it like this, and I just said, I was refereeing me, Mr. Blunt, and I said, shoot it, Larry, shoot it, and he just kind of like this, baseball, and that thing hit that rim, and it went in, and they won, and oh my gosh, the next day, the other kid come in there across the playground, and I was out there on the playground, dude, and he said, well, I guess we got 4th place, and they said, no, said, Mr. Storie told us to pass it around, and if you open close enough, take a good shot, and said, all of us worked together, and said, so guess what, we won, and we beat the number 1 team for, in Bonne Terre, but for 3rd place, and
Right.
And after that, I thought, I hope that other boy, and when he got older, I figured junior high and high school coaches, get a hold of them to, to share, not hog the ball all the time. I mean, sometimes you take shots when a couple players are wide open and should have,
Right.
and usually would have a easy shot underneath instead of taking a long one, so. But it worked out. And little things like that I always remember, so.
No doubt.
Yeah.
This is Ron Storie, longtime PE teacher at the North County School District in the Deloge Elementary level. He's our guest here on Knuckleball Primetime as we bring this to you live on Facebook Live and on YouTube. Another thing that you did every year was the class softball tournament.
Yeah, I did that for a couple of years, and then I kind of stopped because it was interfering with some of the spring baseball, or some of the kids started to play hardball and that, and I didn't want to, because I had some that said, I don't, and I thought, no, you want to play ball in the summer, and I didn't want to upset those coaches, because a lot of kids like to play that softball, but we did that, and or if we couldn't, like maybe during the year, if for some reason they couldn't have a PE class that day, I'd try to double up classes, and we might have a baseball challenge or a kickball challenge or something like that, like that. And I think one time the boys kept bugging about wanting to play the girls, and I had some good girl softball players.
Right.
And I think one year, because they always thought, well, when the girls were good sports, they thought, well, I said, trying, but that one year the girls beat them boys, and I tell you, them boys, they just couldn't take it.
Yeah.
But it was all in fun and everything, so.
Now, wasn't there a class kickball tournament usually towards the end of the year, too?
Yeah, we had a class into the kickball tournament. That was a big thing. I'd go out at Central, and there they had these railings, and I'd get those red and white, blue, like in the World Series, and stream along. Tim got some bamboo poles and taped it up and put a bear flag, but sometimes it'd lean over, it looked like the Alamo. One of the two said, looked like you've been in a fight already, the Alamos and everything, boy. But the kids get fired up. That was their world championship as far as they were concerned, so. And it was a lot of fun. And sometimes we'd play each other during the year, and some of the kids say, gosh, Mrs. So-and-so's teams, they're going to win it all. And all of a sudden, one of the teams might pull an upset, beat them. And that was what kids got a thrill out of, So, and it was like a play day. The other kids in the school could play, or they'd come out, the little ones would start watching. And they'd say, well, I get up there. I'm going to, some of the, like kindergarten, first grade, I think I didn't do. And then later on, when I had kindergarten through fourth grade, we had it for everybody, even little kindergarten, we even had it modified, but they liked playing it too.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. We also played a lot of dodgeball. I know you incorporated bowling pins a lot.
Yeah, I used, instead of just getting everybody out, we went with bowling pins, 3 bowling. And then later on, I stopped the red balls, kind of like these, but some of them boys could really fire in. Well, and there was a couple girls, and then sometimes I had a line at half court, they could all as far as close they could get to you. But the girls, I made it go almost up toward the free throw line. Yeah. Boy, some of them boys did. Some of them girls well, but later on I went ahead and got they made like these fleece balls, and they're kind of more, because some of them weren't an outlaw that, but the kids like to play it, most of them, And, and I thought, well, it's good coordination to catch and that, so I'd have different sizes, but they were like yarn, and when they bounced, I'd go in there and I'd show some of the younger ones. I said I'd throw it off the wall and it'd hit me, and I said, see, it didn't hurt me or what. And then somebody said, well, yeah, but we need, and so I had this little pillow ball, and it was kind of soft. It wasn't, but it is a little bit harder, just a little bit, but it bounces. It's hard to catch, and I called that the boom boom ball, and they'd say, bring that boom boom ball out, and I'd bounce that, and it'd boom, and boy, some of them would yell, he's got the boom boom ball, better run,
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'd even get in the game to play with them, I'd do something like lay the ball down or something. The kids started picking up and didn't know I was hiding another one to get him, or I'd say, oh, look, there's a squirrel up there, and he's going to get him out. And some of the kids said, I ain't going for your tricks no more. And then one of the kids, I think, knew I would like deer. And he said, Miss Storie, trot out there like a deer. He's like you're an 8-pointer or something. He said, I'll get you. And I said, you couldn't hit my rear. And, and I'd trot out there, and I'll be darned, one time he got me with the boom boom ball. Boy, the kids, they just ribbed that up, on me and everything. So.
You liked playing games, I guess, no matter what, and that kind of made you.
One of the teachers said, all you are is just a big old kid. You ain't never grown up. And I told him, I said, well, when I retire, I'll have to go out in the real world and see what adults do, But I enjoyed it, and I thought, well, I had good memories when I was a kid, and I thought, man, if I didn't have like Mr. Secrets or somebody like that, I don't know, things. I just try to hope they had good memories and kids had enjoyment. And I said, besides just being all physical, there's a lot of stuff mentally and socialization. I think we need that today,
Sure.
Everybody be kind to each other and help each other and stuff like that, which I was lucky to be in a school district where the parents and the kids, I never felt for everyone that did something, horrible or something, or when there was like 100 or 200, that were really kind and everything, not only to me, but to other kids and everybody in school. So,
how did you remember everybody's name? Because, I mean, you knew everybody just like that. At least that's how it looked to us.
It's hard. Well, it's hard. And then as I get older, sometimes somebody will say something to me when they say Mr. Storie. I kind of had in school. And then I'm trying to remember. And then I'll remember sometimes their name, or I'll start talking to me about other kids around, the classes. And then I kind of joggle my memory. But it's been a lot of them. I know Mr. Blunt, we sat down one time, we was talking, because when we first started out, I think the first year I had, like, counting volunteer and everything, I had like 800 or 900 kids. And then every year we always got like 150 to 200. And I thought, man, you do that for 35 years, you're adding like another 6, 7, that's about 8,000, 9,000 kids. I thought, golly, that's quite a bit. But man, you try to learn them, and sometimes you forget. And then some their faces never change, or their voice, or then some of my laugh is I'll be sitting there at school when the first day or right before school's starting, I was working in my room or something, and a little kid comes in to see the building or something. I look, and I'll be darned, it's just like deja vu, like the Hulseys or something. I don't know. Every time, and the woman said, "I bet you don't know me." And he's little. I said, "Oh, I think I do." And I started naming off something. Well, how do you know? And I said, I had them in school. And he said, are you going to do some games so they can play and have, and all of them were go-getters, but I just laugh,
How many Hulsey kids do you think you taught?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. That, and I think, and then volunteer, like the blacks and stuff like that. I mean, when you say a certain name, you kind of identified for a certain school, or anything like that. But yeah, but some of them, I thought, golly, I said, I'm having their kids now. And then some of them turned into teachers, and started working at the school that I had them. And I remember one, Miss Starks is my wife's cousin, but and one of them said something about, it was arguing or something in the hallway, and I was trying to say, and I said, Miss Starks, they're telling me that Miss Starks and that, or your kin. I said, well, my wife is. I said, well, if you want to know a secret, I said, I remember when she was about this long, he said, oh, no, you didn't. I said, well, just ask her one day. I said, boy, he walked in, just blabbed it out. And then she come down there and said, Ronnie, you're making me feel old. I said, well, you make me, but, kids got a kick out of that, And they said, gosh, you mean you teach other people that are, and then they'd say, how old are you or something like that. We used to tease the kids, or sometimes the younger ones, that, Miss Storie, where do you live? And I said, I live in that closet. And they said, what? I said, well, after school, I just close the door and wait till the next morning to get out the balls and everything and play. And someone say, okay. And then someone say, oh, he's telling a big fib. He's telling Mr. Storie's telling a story, like that. So.
Story rules. That was something that we always talked about. 2 fouls on the same side and you're out. I'm assuming that was just to kind of move things along.
Yeah,
right?
There for a while. I think one time we had a game, and I guess that person kicked like 20 of them off to the side. And of course, I'm trying to get everybody to get 2 or 3 kicks a game, and sometimes in 45 minutes. So, if some game one inning's real long, some of the kids hardly didn't get anything. And of course, next game or so, I'd make them captain or move him up or something to get more kicks. But like that, so I thought, well, I'll make that rule. But I remember some kids arguing about that one time. And, well, at home we play it different, Mr. Storie. And somebody said, well, we still use. I said, you have your rules, I guess. And in tetherball, it used to be there. They'd get into that over at Cantwell and that, and then have certain rules. But one time I was going across the playground and one said, "We're not using Mr. Storie rules. You can catch the ball on tetherball, and someone." Right. But someone would do that, but they'd change it like in the middle of the game when they're losing. I said, no, you got to set the rules first before you challenge that person, not change it in the middle when you know you're at disadvantage and you want to get your advantage on them. So, but yeah, they had Mr. Storie rules, I had a few.
And that was good. And doing stuff like that taught us how to work through conflict in a healthy way without just pushing and shoving each other.
Yeah, and arguing and all that. Yeah. And then basketball, I remember that in your reels I'd watch. Then I kind of stand there and then someone said, Miss Storie, how come we can't get, and I said, you need to start passing that ball a little bit out. And I said, when they move out, I said, some of you just need to stand. And I said, move in. And I said, especially on a shot. I said, and if you get it in that, I called the paint area, I said, if there ain't I said, take it up. And I said, yeah, but they're bigger. I said, but they might foul you. And I said, and if you do, you get maybe two free shots, and who knows, So, but most of the time they'd figure some of this stuff out. I kind of wanted them to figure, or a certain way to, someone would move to the left or something, and that person could steal that ball. But sometimes you'd feint it and go that way, and you go around, and they kind of learned. Some of them started learning on their own. I said, well, you'll get better coaching when you get up in junior high and high school, than from me. But like that, just try to give them little tidbits so they can, learn and catch it on their own. Because I thought a lot of times, some kids teaching other kids sometimes are almost better than the adults trying to tell them sometimes, like that. So,
absolutely. I remember you doing a lot of play-by-play to add to the excitement of the games, and it seemed like I remember when you'd wrap up, you'd check your watch and time to take the kids back to class. We're running out of time. You win. Yeah. We just love that.
Yeah, I say game's over or whatever, And I remember one time I had like third grade or something. One little boy was just crying. Some of them couldn't take getting beaten, kicked.
Sure, yeah.
I said, everybody losing. And I'd tell them, I said, well, one time I played on a softball team, and I said, I think we lost 10 in a row, 10 men's. And they said, well, what happened? I said, what, at the end, the last game of the year, I said, we played the number one team, and we pulled an upset on them. I said, that was my World Series that year, But anyway, and I remember some of them in the beginning line, they said, oh, Joseph always cries, he's done, and I said, oh, leave him alone. And he said, yeah, but, and then I think I did that like on somebody on Saturday Night Live. I said, it just doesn't matter. It just, and all the kids start saying that, sometimes it don't matter. You'll play again sometime. You will win again sometime, And then some of them would say, well, I've been on like a 5-game losing streak, and I said, well, you'll come out of it, like that. But kids were all funny, We had a lot of fun together and that. So
it was.
You had to try to, and some teachers, I know being strict and that, but they said, Mister, I said, well, sometimes I just come down to their level sometimes to help. Sometimes you can get too above them, or something and that. So I said, we tried to work it out, and I said it seemed like it worked out all right for me, all these years. So.
Very good. So we had you sign one of these kickballs before. We're going to have you sign the other one, too. I think Chad's keeping one, which is rightfully so. I mean, he worked really hard for this, but we're going to give one away. So we'll give you the details in the post, exactly how you can get an official Ron Storie autographed kickball. Tell us about your family, kids, grandkids, great-grandkids.
Yeah, I've got a daughter that works in hospice, and she has... might be my grandkids, 2 girls, one's 10, and the other one's just turned 21. Or my daughter's works in hospice, and then her her kids, little Gracie, 10, and then I have one that's 21, Lexi, and she just had a little girl named Aurora, and that's my great-granddaughter. And then my grandson, Caleb, and he's 24 now, and he has 2 kids. He has one, Lane, 4 years old, and then just had a little baby too, and her name's Paisley, and she's one just turned 1 year old too, also. So like that, and my son, he lives Mark, he lives down in Texas and everything. You see him going, lives down there outside of Fort Worth, about 60 miles out there, like on a little farm, and they have horses and some sheep and stuff. And I like going down there, and they have a lot of lakes around that area, which surprised me. I mean, I know in Texas, but there's some good fishing lakes, catching bass or crappie. And then they even have one lake that's in a power plant. And I said, well, they're probably radioactive, and everybody laughed, but it was somehow the tilapia got in there, which is an invasive species, but they're good to eat and everything, but they want them taken out of there, so certain months they'll open it up down there, the power plant people let them on their property, and if you catch them, you got to either throw them away or eat them. If they catch you throwing them back in, they fine you. I said that's the first time I really saw somebody throw a big old fish like that back in the lake. You know, if you do, they'll fine you for it. They want them out of there, but they just seem like they populate all the time in there, you know. And then down there you have to fish a little bit and watch. There's been a couple alligators spotted down there, so I always have to watch that, because I used to just throw my pole back and kick back, and I thought, well, I don't want those gators walking up on my foot or whatever like that. But I go down there, and it's a lot of fun going down there.
What else keeps you busy?
I like to deer hunt and everything, and fish too, but mostly deer hunt. I used to tell kids always, well, I was looking back at my little books. They sent me little books at the end of the when I was retiring, and someone was drawing deer, and they always heard me talking about deer, you know, and everything. I like to deer hunt, and even if I don't get one, just to get out in the fall and just sit there out there with nature and maybe meditate a little bit, you know. So
you had the customized license plate Ronbo back in the day. Do you still own that?
Yes, I still got that. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Now, I got that name from hunting and all things. A couple of buddies had their little three-wheelers at that time, and they dropped me off on a ridge, you know, and they hunted half the morning. And my buddy says, Ronnie, he always hunts. He said he'll hunt all day long. He said he's patient doing that. And one of them said, well, let's run up there. And he ran up. Well, I had one of those, like a ghillie suit, or as a camouflage and a mask and everything. It looked like leaves. And well, I was up in the bush there, and I saw him come up, and one stopped. Mike, I think, saw me, my buddy, and the other one pulled in, and he said, where's Ronnie? And I jumped out, and I said, Rambo, you know, like that real loud. Yeah. And he said, Rambo, heck, Ronbo. He scared me to death. Well, once they said that name, it got all over the place, and everybody started calling me that. So I said, well, then I'll just put it on my license plate, you know. But that's how I got that nickname. So crazy, but
that's how we knew it was PE Day, because we saw the Ronbo car parked out front.
Yeah, the Ronbo car. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Any real fond memories that come to mind? I know you mentioned a bunch of them, but anything else?
Well, the one where the dog got me, I don't know if you ever heard about that one.
Oh, please tell.
There was I call it junkyard dog next to Cantwell over there. And sometimes kids at recess play ball in their ball roll or whatever. Well, that dog was just barking, and he was on a big old doghouse and on a big old chain, but I thought it only stretched out about like 10 feet. And I was walking between, is at recess time, and I was going back down the building, and I wasn't on duty. And, Miss Storie, would you get that ball for us? We can't. We're afraid they won't let us in the yard. And the teachers were on. I said, well, you're not supposed to. I said, that dog, because that dog I'd seen him all the time barking, and he'd bark, and that darn doghouse would move almost, and some of the teachers talked about it. They was afraid that dog might get loose, you know, and everything. And later on, found out that dog had gotten loose and almost bit somebody, and they had been warned by, you know, the city and everything. But anyway, I thought, I'll get there. And I had this pole that I used to, with a hook on it, used to get balls off the roof with.
Right.
And I thought, well, I can lay that pole down and reach out and grab that ball and pull it in. Well, I did. I pulled it down, and about the time I started picking up, two kids almost tragically jumped on me and said, Mr. Storie, give us that ball. I said, just a minute. And about that time I turned, and I saw that dog raise up, but then I saw that chain, and that chain's like 20 foot. And all of a sudden, like 2 seconds, and I pushed this one boy back, and that dog latched right into my thigh, you know. And started yanking me, and I pushed down like this, but I was trying to hold my hand, and I thought I had everything, but he got a hold of my thumb, and I just heard something crunch, you know, and I thought I'd lost my thumb, and I finally was able to hit him, get it with my other hand, and get him right between the eyes, and he let go just enough, but I came back, and when I started sticking my hand in my 5 of my fingers just went in like that.
Oh.
And I mean, I was gushing blood, and I'm kind of a borderline bleeder anyway. And lucky Miss Carricker, her husband was a doctor too, but she was able to get us there and hold it. And I was looking at my thumb, and I said, it's so bloodied up. I said, I hope they can save it. And got me to the hospital and everything. And I had a bunch of stitches in my leg and my thumb. But anyway, later on, I think they had to move that dog off and everything. But,
I hope so.
But the kids was always, and then some of them started coming and said, Mr. Storie, I'm sorry, it's my fault. And I said, what is it? It ain't your fault. And they said, well, after school sometimes we go up by there and taunt him, and we pick up rocks and throw at him. Oh. So I had confession there. And then about a week or later, some bus was coming up there, junior high kids in high school. So one of them yelled out, Mr. Storie, watch out for those dogs. And I thought, uh-oh. So I knew that was going to go all year long. I kept hearing that remark. Once in a while, I'd hear somebody yell out, watch out for dogs, Mr. Storie. Like that.
Former students that have gone on to coach, maybe PE teachers, things like that. Anybody like come back to you like you did for Bob Sechrist?
I'm trying to think. There's a few. I try to remember names though, and some of them. But I remember some, becoming teachers and that, or helping out. And then I think P.J. Jones is and the coach now at
Brian Jones.
Yeah, Brian. I think I remember. Yeah. And Key Cats, I guess, or something. Yeah.
Kicks, yep.
Yeah, definitely like that. So.
Right.
Yeah, and somebody else from Bonterre. I think he was a teacher and retired.
Who were some of the best athletes you saw? That you
best athletes. I know you had some really good ones, and I know all of them are listening very intently right now, hoping that you say their name.
Well, I know when I first started out, Cy Bradley used to coach up here, and his son, he only went up to about the 5th grade. I'm trying to remember his first, Matt Bradley, and I think he went to Potosi, and I think maybe he was teaching some, but he was good. I think went up in basketball when he was up there, and then I remember the class probably they were maybe it was P.J. Jones and the McIntyres and the Smiths and. Like in about when they were in the 10th grade or something, I think they were really good. And then I thought the football teams, I think was it 96 and 7 when they were.
Yep.
I mean, I just saw those kids down. We didn't really play. Sometimes we played a little flag football or something, but just watching them, and I thought, man, they're going to be, if they keep at it, they're going to be pretty good. And I had that group, and I thought, that group might be one of the groups. I always said something. I'd always tease them. I said, before I go, I see somebody win a state championship or be in the state tournament, at least, just say, hey, I knew those kids or whatever,
Right.
And I liked them, and everything. And that football teams were really there. And I think in the mid 70s, there was, I think the Eaton boy and some others in football. They had pretty good teams through there, Matt always had really good teams. And I think Matt, when he was in high school, they didn't have a tournament at that time, but he was, the quarterback at Valley Catholic, and his team, I think all 9 games or 10 games they played, nobody scored on them at all. Shut every one of them out. And I thought, my gosh. And I remember we got to play their junior varsity one year, it was in Flat River and that, and we always usually got beat pretty bad, but I think one year, the senior year, I think I'd done some in practice, and the old coach got on me, and so he moved me down off the A team down to even in the 12th grade to get some practice, and which I didn't mind because I like playing the game instead of doing the practice on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah. And if I do 2 quarters, I still had 2 quarters left. I could play up at the varsity. And we played Valley down there one night, and I was able to get 3. I think that's the best I ever did. I think their line says somehow opened up, but I was able to sack the quarterback about 3 times, which and everybody, and then we won that game. But to beat Valley, it was something, Sure. Even their junior varsity could probably beat some of the regular teams, and. They always were good, Well, they still are,
Yeah, they still are. You keep up with the high school
sports? Yeah, I try, and I'm really proud to see, some of the teams around here starting to, get in semis or even win like Central, I think,
Right.
and even our teams get up there and the girls and everything, like that. I try to keep up with them because I used to tell kids, some of them down there, well, some of them was sports minded, kind of like I was, and they'd say, Miss Storie, have you seen anybody that was ever good or something? And I said, best for around here. I said, I remember, if you call it around here, Crystal City, I said, I remember Bill Bradley, and I said, and he played for the Knicks and, and everything, and out in Princeton, I believe it was. And I said, he was a good ball player. And I said, and he passed off and everything. And I laughed. I said, I remember. I said, I can at least say one time. I said, he fell on me. And he said, what? I said, well, I was at the ball game at Deloge used to have a black and gold tournament.
Uh-huh.
And certain teams were in the black division and the gold division.
Okay.
And anyway, Deloge had I think Weibel and some other teams, and they were good. They were I think they went the first round of the state that year. And for anybody around here to go to the state, or if they get past the first round, because you had to play all these teams down south like Charleston, and it was tough, So, but anyway, they were around here. They were beating everybody by a ton, and Crystal City come down, and somebody said, "Oh, we'll handle that boy." Yeah. He had I think 50 points, and I think he had 40 something by halftime, and the second half anyway they beat Deloge by over 20. But that place was packed on both sides and all the way around the base, and remember that. And then finally I got to see him play in the championship against St. Louis U for first place. And back then it was a Class L, and they were in a Class L at that time, which now they're real small, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, they lost by I think it was just by 1 point on a couple of free throws, but he'd passed off, which he would have made it, and passed off this kid, and the kid kind of shot it way high off the backboard, and they got a rebound. They fouled that kid. I forgot who it was, and he went down and scored two points. I think I put him about 3, and they fired the ball. There's only 5 seconds or something left. 10 seconds, and he threw the ball in, and Bradley went down almost near the head of the key and popped 2, and then when they threw it in, they got the ball, stole the ball, but it was 1 second, and the game went off, and I remember this kid slapping that ball, and everybody was running on court, and Bradley picked up that ball, and he just went like that, and it went in, and I thought, you knew if it had a couple more seconds, they'd have won that game. But my uncle, he said, well, that old country boy's pretty good, or something like that. And I said, well, I think he's good enough. And he said, well, I think, and after he saw that game, he said, I think he might do good in college, and then who knows, he went up to pros,
Yeah.
So,
and the library at Crystal City is named after him, but not the gym.
Yeah.
Which that kind of shows a little bit of
and
what kind of guy he was too.
1 year, I think it's 11th grade, I got to play up there, and boy, I was walking on that court, and I just thought, gosh, Bill Bradley played, and I seen all the stuff that they had, and they'd won another trophy, I think 3rd place, but and then I think when I graduated from high school, I went to student teach at North County, and North County had them, Leadwood, and Fredericktown, and DeSoto, and I think they were 23-4 at the time. That was one of the best records, and then I think, of course, that record's probably been broken and everything, but we lost twice to DeSoto, and DeSoto went on to win 4th place in the Class L state tournament, which was good against these St. Louis and Kansas City teams. Wow. And then Fredericktown had that Denman boy, I believe, and they took 2nd place. And we'd played them in a tournament. I think it was a county tournament, something a couple weeks before that, and we'd beat them once, and we got beat by about 10 or 12. Him and that cameraman boy underneath, I believe. And I remember Cy just saying, he said, Ron, if they play like this, he said, they might go all the way. And, they wound up getting 2nd in the state that year. And Leadwood had a good team, and they pulled a couple upsets, but then they got upset, I think, in the semis on their thing. But it was cat eat dog and vice versa all around. It was like a 3-ring circus there that year. I mean, the teams down here. So I always liked watching that. And when growing up, then I told the kids, I said I always admired the little town down there at South Iron winning, and they had some teams down there.
Right.
Still
doing it.
Yeah, still doing it. And when I taught in college, or was in college, and I met one of the coaches there. I think it was Gene Cozine, and then he later went up to DeSoto, I believe. And I asked him, and he said, I just kind of looked into that, Ron. He said they had good. He said, but those. He said we'd open that gym. He said in the summertime, and he said it'd be hotter than heck, and he said those boys would go in there and just play. I said, yeah, you remind me. I laughed because I'd always say, you remind me of that movie, you know, of I don't know, it's about that Indiana school going on.
Hoosiers.
Yeah, the Hoosiers. Yeah. And I said, sometimes those little town teams like that remind me of something like that, you know. And then I read about my uncle telling me, but that was about Bismarck.
Right,
when,
Johnny Reagan. And
yeah, 1944 or something like that. And I got a little article. And I said, you know, that almost could go for like the Hoosiers, you know.
Sure.
And I said at that time it was only one tournament in the whole state. Everybody, little teams played those big giant teams, or populations, you know. So, yeah, I like sports, or like to talk like history or stuff. And I collect like baseball autographs and some. So I used to have his Gateway Stamp Company or something. They used to sell autographs, and I got some, but I'll give them to somebody. But when I do, I always tell them, I said, take care of it. And like it's still, I said, well, it's for history and stuff like that. You know, pass it down. You know, so most collectors do. You know, and stuff. But I guess all of us. I said, yeah, when we was kids, I said we'd take Mickey Mantle cars and that and bend them or flip them. I used to trade all mine for Cardinals.
Me too. Yeah.
And all I wanted was Cardinals.
Yeah.
And then one time, my mom said something. Ron says, "You got some of this old box?" And I looked back, and I forgot all about some of them. And I had a whole bunch, and I traded all them, and I was collecting yearbooks. And a teacher at the high school, he collected you know, ball cards, and he said, and you have duplicates? He said, I'll give you, and he gave me like a 1952 Cardinal yearbook or something, and, you know, and I saved him, and I finally, of course, I sold some to help my son get through college. He said, Dad, you don't have to. I said, well, I come there, and I said, I'm getting up in age, and you're not interested, really, you're not much of a sports fan like that. I said, well, give it over to somebody that'll preserve some of that history and stuff, so. Like
Very
that.
good. Well, Mr. Storie, it has been a pleasure speaking with you and hearing some great stories.
Hope
and,
I didn't talk your leg
Oh,
off.
no.
Sorry.
That's what this is all about, is letting you talk and tell these great stories. And I forgot about the dog incident and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so it's great. We really appreciate you. And you've had such a great positive influence on, literally, like you said, thousands of kids over the years. And thank you for that.
The kids are what made me, I believe, and the teachers and the school, everybody in the school district is always kind, you know, and everything, willing to help in any way. So now, you know, and I'm still proud to say, you know, I'm a Raider. You know, someone will say, well, you're a Rebel. And somebody laughs and says, yeah, and you lived in Farmington, but then you're a Raider. I said, yeah, well, I'm a Raider too. I said, you know, hey, these kids, you know, were like, I tried to hope they treat them like they were my own kids, you know, like that. So, had a lot of fun, you know.
Greatly appreciate your time. We'll let you get back to the Ron Beaumobile.
Okay. Yeah, I plan to get out and try to maybe chase a deer. I don't know.
There you go. All right.
Who knows?
Mr. Storie joining us here on Knuckleball Primetime right here on YouTube and Facebook.